Hi, welcome to See You Live. My name is Walker Evans. I'm the co-founder of ColumbusUnderground.com. Joining me today is Josh Lapp, board chair of Transit Columbus. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, want to talk to you about something that if you've lived in Central Ohio for a while, you probably remember. If you're new to the city, these might be some new words and new terms and ideas to you, but the 3C corridor transit system. We're coming up on the 10th anniversary, January 27th, 2010. That was the 10th anniversary now of when that transit corridor received federal funding, $400 million under the Obama administration through sort of their transportation grant, funding for those years. Can you tell us a little bit about what the 3C corridor was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's something those of us who have a long transit memory in Columbus would probably rather forget. But the federal government under the Obama administration awarded high-speed rail funds to many states, and Ohio was among the few that were awarded those funds and then returned them to the federal government. So those funds were actually, it's a $400 million that would have constructed a passenger rail line with daily service between Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus.
And Dayton.
And Dayton, yes. So we would have hit the 3 C's and the D, and you would have been able to go, between any of the cities on a passenger train. Would have had, I think, a regular speed of somewhere around 50 to 70 miles an hour, which was part of the talking points around that time. But it really would have been our opportunity as a city to better connect ourselves to other communities in Ohio and really become a hub for passenger rail in the state. Unfortunately, for political reasons and others, I'm sure, the Kasich administration turned back that funding, which had been given to Ohio under the Strickland administration. And so, it was definitely a sad moment for Columbus because, we probably would have been seeing service improvements made over, since the time that it would have opened.
I remember seeing a timeline somewhere that sort of said, when it launched, the trains would reach speeds of up to 79 miles per hour. And then as some of the tracks where there's like curves that were too sharp or tracks that needed updated, they would eventually be able to get it to 110 within a couple of quick years.
Yeah, and
which we would have by now.
If you look at states like, the state up north, Michigan and Illinois are two really great states that have been upgrading their passenger rail service. Some of the funding actually from Ohio went to Michigan to help pay for the improvements of their corridor between Detroit and Chicago.
Yeah, just to give a little background on that too. So Governor Strickland had spent 3 or 4 years working on this. I know there was even more work done prior to his administration. They received the funding in January 2010. That was an election year. Strickland lost. Kasich won that fall, and so Kasich came into office in 2011, January. And one of his campaign talking points was that this money shouldn't be going to trains, it should be going to roads. I'm going to take this money given to me by the federal government for trains and apply it to roads, while most everyone said, you can't do that, it's been earmarked for this, it's going to just go back and be redistributed to other states. So it was a little disingenuous for him to keep saying that over and over, that this money's going to roads, when it was never going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and so ultimately the funding was reallocated and did go to other states. It went to, specifically I know some of it went to Michigan and I think California.
Maybe Florida as well?
Yeah.
They had a big system.
Yeah. And during that same time period, Illinois decided to basically make the investments that we were not making, using Chicago as a central hub, and now they have 110 mile an hour service to St. Louis and they're connecting other areas around the states. My firm, Designing Local, is actually getting ready to work in Moline, Illinois, which is part of the Quad Cities, and they're using funds to connect. That's about 2 hours away from Chicago to connect there. So really these other states have made these improvements, and so it's a shame that Columbus and our entire state was basically left out of that because of these decisions. But having said that, I think 10 years on, certainly the current administration has been much more interested in funding transportation. The transit budget was increased at the State House this year. And there is even, talk bubbling up of not just the Columbus to Chicago line that was partially the studies for that were funded by the state of Ohio, but also, more talk and more energy around maybe thinking about the idea of the 3C again. And just from an advocate's perspective, I think the DeWine administration has been much more interested in thinking about like a system rather than just a Department of Highways. So
gotcha. Yeah. So there's hope still that this could come back.
I mean, don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
but yes, I do think there are certainly there are a lot of passionate advocates, and I think I've seen a lot of things lately about the need to connect Ohio in a better way, and so hopefully that can be part of the conversation in the future. Because as we know, I mean, Greater Ohio just released a report recently, and basically Columbus is the only state or only city in the state that is seeing any measurable growth. And for me, it's part of like making a more connected state so that that we can help improve the economy of not just Columbus but also the Mansfields and Zanesvilles and Chillicothe's of the world.
Easier access between the two for business, recreation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Two kind of quick little factoids that I wanted to point out, because a lot of people that were opposed to this said, Columbus isn't dense enough, or we're not big enough, or these things only work in China or Europe. Columbus is, I believe, the second largest city without Amtrak service. We had it up until the late 70s, and that went away. I think Vegas is the only other larger region or city without Amtrak.
Yeah.
They have other forms of rail. We might be the biggest without
I think
anything.
I have seen this around the internet, and I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But I believe that this is true. We are probably the largest city in the entire world that does not have passenger.
A single form of transit.
No kind of train at all.
Yeah. So we've had it before when we were a much smaller city. We had Amtrak service up until the late 70s, and then it went away. So we've just been the last 40 years without it. But also the overall, because Ohio has very rural areas and very small towns, we're a very clustered state as far as the population densities go. We're virtually the same density as the country of France.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So when you look at the population of the state and the land mass, it's something like 280 people per square mile, and France is like right at 300. So we're basically the same when you look at it that way. And we're flat. We're like a perfect area to deploy. We don't have mountains to tunnel through or build over. So,
well, I am really excited about the work that Morpsey has done. And honestly, the Hyperloop, while I might question the merits of that as a transportation system, and especially
we'll save that for a whole other video.
and the investments that need to be made as part of that. However, the study that has been put together by Morpsey and other partners was, for Hyperloop and also passenger rail, and the funding from that, part of that came from the state, and I think that we can look at that as, we're really exploring our options. Like, is Hyperloop a good idea? I don't know. That study can help us understand that, but it also lays the foundation for the possibility of the return of passenger rail through that corridor, and so that would be great.
Nice. Well, thanks for the insight on this, and we'll, continue to cover all these studies as they progress, and hopefully we'll have more good news soon.
Yes.